This extract is situated after the point where the two princes die, and is while Queen Elizabeth is mourning her children's death. And basically Elizabeth is asking Margaret to give her wisdom. She's basically asking Margaret to teach her how to hate and how to curse. And after this extract, Margaret leaves for France. So in this monologue, up to line 10, we can see how Margaret is trying to make Elizabeth realise what kind of queen she was, basically a fake kind of queen. She calls her a painted queen, or a queen in jest only to fill the scene. And this shows really why the wrath that Margaret has, and also it shows a sort of her characteristics, so how bitter she can be and how inhumane she can be, which resembles a lot to the characteristics of Richard. And this is very interesting because Richard and Margaret are supposed to be opposite poles, and somehow they're drawn together by the same characteristic. So afterwards, line 11 to 15, Margaret asks loads of rhetorical questions. And basically, Shakespeare does this so that, first of all, in the play, in the context of the play, Elizabeth understands what's happening, what is going on. And on the second hand, to make a globe audience, so an audience from the time of Shakespeare, understand what has been accumulating for the last 3 plays, and how it's gonna maybe or maybe not end in this last play. However, Margaret afterwards softens line 16, and she stops being a bit bitter, and she says, "Decline all this and see what now thou art." So she's basically trying to teach Elizabeth how to accept what is happening, and this can more or less be linked to the role of woman, which I'll talk about later. And basically after that, she starts saying oppositions. So for a happy wife, a most distressed widow, or for a joyful mother, one that wails a name. And this once again links back to Margaret's power, her will to see Richard fail his plot. Line 24, Margaret says, "Thus hath the course of justice wheeled about." Now, this links back to the idea of the Wheel of Fortune. So basically the idea that everything is destined and predetermined, which is a very big part in this play. This theme of determinism is a very big part of the play Richard III. And it's very interesting because basically Margaret is saying that what happened to her happened to Elizabeth and will happen to the next queen, and so on, and it will never stop because it's the Wheel of Fortune. It always goes round and round and never stops. Line 25, Margaret says that Elizabeth is a prey to time. So this is basically saying that as time goes on, Elizabeth's values will disappear, just like Margaret's value has disappeared. And towards the end of the monologue, Margaret says, now thy proud neck bears half my burden yoke. And a yoke is basically what slaves used to wear and what cows wear. And so basically Margaret is now passing on all of her hatred, her grief and her burden to Elizabeth. And this once again links back to the idea of the Wheel of Fortune and how things will repeat themselves and almost never end. Now to talk more about Margaret's character. Now, in a way we can understand her pain because her husband has been killed by Richard, and so has her son. Her livelihood depends on the people who killed her son, because women who used to be alone in those days had no power, and therefore they had to be with someone, and therefore she relies on the people who killed her son. However, she's not entirely innocent, because in the previous plays, she killed Richard's brother, and therefore we can also understand this clash in between Richard and Margaret. And this also links back to the entire play, saying that nobody in the play is innocent, except probably the two princes, because they're still young and they still haven't learnt all these curses and all these things that make people miserable. And so basically we can ask ourselves is if Margaret's cursing is acceptable. So she basically, her curses are first that King Edward IV should die, that she should outlive her children and see another person become queen, another woman become crowned queen. Rivers, Dorset and Hastings will die early deaths, which is what happens in the play. And Richard will feel betrayed and have nightmares. So we can conclude that from this extract, we can conclude from this extract that Margaret is an icon of the feminist suffering in the play. Basically, that all women only get to see what's happening and they cannot interact. No woman has the power to intervene with what the men are doing. While the men see it as a conflict between good and bad, whereas the women in the play just see it as people, children and loved ones dying one after the other. And they basically hate the living people, the people that's killed all the others, because those are the only people who are left. But they still have to depend on them to survive. So that's a very interesting theme that Shakespeare is showing us.